When her wealthy husband dies unexpectedly, Evelyn Ward expects grief, not a red envelope on her doorstep signed with a single initial. S. The note inside reads, "You buried the wrong man." As her life unravels under fire, poison, and secrets, Evelyn is drawn into a psychological duel with her husband's mistress, a woman who doesn't just ruin lives but replaces them. Elegant, ruthless, and impossible to trace, Scarlet Veil has one goal left: to wear Evelyn's world like a custom-fitted glove. But Evelyn isn't the grieving widow Scarlet expected. She's the last woman on Earth who will go down quietly. Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like. It means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Rain slicked the marble steps of St. Augustine's Cathedral, as if the sky itself had decided to grieve. Umbrellas bloomed like black petals along the walkway, held in rigid hands by people who'd rehearsed the solemn art of mourning. Some genuinely wept. Most simply watched Evelyn Ward. She stood beneath the cathedral archway, bone straight in her tailored black coat, one gloved hand resting lightly on the coffin's edge, as if reluctant to let it go. Charles Ward, her husband of 22 years, surgeon, philanthropist, mentor, liar, lay inside in eternal stillness. Her veil clung to her cheeks, kissed wet by the rain and her own unreadable expression. Not one tear. Not one tremble. Her beauty was untouched by grief, but her stillness held the weight of 1,000 pounds. People said she was dignified, graceful. But beneath the black silk and pearl buttons, Evelyn was listening. Watching. Not for sympathy. For secrets. The priest's Latin chant faded beneath the murmuring crowd as the casket was lowered into the ground, the earth swallowing Charles like a lover pulling him under the sheets one last time. Evelyn didn't look away. Let them see her stare. Let them think she was broken. Let them believe she had nothing left to lose. By evening, the guests were gone. The food untouched. The house, her house, echoed with the kind of silence only death can bring. Evelyn unpinned her veil with methodical fingers. She did not cry. Charles had taught her never to cry where someone might see it. Not even for him. She moved through the house slowly, touching framed photographs as if they might tell her something new. Charles at the opera. Charles holding awards. Charles standing beside men in suits with unspeakable power. So many versions of him, but not one frame of them together alone. Strange how she'd never noticed that until now. She opened the bedroom door. There, on the floor beneath the mirror, lay a red envelope. Blood-colored. Clean. Deliberately placed. No postage. No address. Just her name, handwritten in a looping, feminine script that curled like a snake around prey. Evelyn. She stared at it, breath held in her throat like a trapped animal. Then she bent to pick it up. Inside was a single folded note, warm to the touch, like it had just been written. You buried the wrong man. S. No return address. No explanation. No mercy. Evelyn read it once more, and then again. Her hand did not tremble. She walked to the window and looked out into the night, where shadows shifted between branches and street lamps flickered like nervous eyes. Somewhere out there was S, and S knew something. She turned slowly, note in hand, and whispered aloud to the silence. Then let's start digging. The scent hit her before the door opened. Jasmine, expensive and sweet, the kind that lingered even after the wearer was long gone, or long dead. Evelyn tilted her head slightly, like a hound catching wind of a fox. The doorman gave her a curious glance as he held the entrance open. Someone's been waiting, he said. Didn't give a name. Evelyn offered a cold smile. They rarely do. She stepped into the hotel lounge, heels whispering against polished marble, past tables of whispered deals and dying marriages. And there, by the fireplace, legs crossed like a dancer mid-performance, sat Scarlet Veil. She didn't rise. She didn't need to. Scarlet was one of those women who didn't walk into a room. She claimed it. Flame-red hair coiled in an elegant knot, crimson dress sliced just high enough to scandalize and just low enough to keep the guessing going. Eyes like polished garnet, sharpened by amusement. Evelyn, she purred, sipping from a glass of champagne that someone else had likely paid for. You're even more beautiful than he said. though I can't decide if it's real or very, very expensive. Evelyn sat down across from her without invitation. Scarlet veil. Ah, he did mention I make quite the impression. I imagine parasites often do. Scarlet laughed, light and delighted. God, he adored that wit of yours. Said you could draw blood with it. But I suppose that's why he kept you in the house. You were the wife. The painting in the frame. Evelyn's jaw tightened. And you were what? His midlife experiment in self-destruction. Oh, darling, Scarlet leaned forward, the gold chain around her neck catching the firelight. I was the only thing that made him feel alive. A long silence stretched between them. Evelyn's fingers curled around her clutch like she was holding back something. A slap, a scream, a memory she didn't want. Scarlet broke the silence with a sigh, tilting her head. You thought you knew him. That's the tragedy here. You wore the ring, the titles, but she tapped her chest. I knew his heart. I knew what he regretted. What he wanted. And most importantly, she smiled, what he was afraid of. Evelyn leaned back, voice quiet and deadly. Afraid of what? You. Scarlet let the word sit. For a long time. Until I showed him he didn't need to be. Evelyn studied her. Not a flicker of guilt in Scarlet's face. No hesitation, no apology, just the burning confidence of a woman who had taken what she wanted and would take more, given half a breath of permission. Scarlet stood, finishing her drink. I came to offer you something, Evelyn. Kindness. She pulled another red envelope from her bag and placed it on the table between them. You're grieving. And grief, it clouds logic. This will help you understand why Charles and I belong together. Why he chose me in the end. Evelyn didn't reach for it. Scarlet smiled like a blade. When you're ready. Then she walked out, hips swaying like a slow, deliberate insult, leaving the scent of jasmine behind, and Evelyn staring at a second envelope. This one had no message on the outside, but Evelyn already knew what it would say inside. Something wicked. Something true. Something from the woman who had destroyed her husband, and wasn't done yet. The envelope burned in Evelyn's hands long after Scarlet had left. She didn't open it in the lounge. That would have been giving the woman something, satisfaction, perhaps, or the illusion of control. No, Evelyn waited until she was back in her husband's study, the door locked behind her, silence pooling in the corners like fog. She slit the seal with a letter opener, the same silver blade Charles once used for opening condolences and bribes alike. Inside were two items, a worn photograph of Scarlet in Charles's arms and a photocopy of a second will, notarized, legal, and signed. Half of everything, assets, estate properties, his private collection, even the beach villa in Portugal Evelyn had decorated by hand, left to Scarlet Veil. The signature at the bottom was unmistakably his. It wasn't the money that made Evelyn's hands tighten, it was the implication. This wasn't some drunken revision scribbled on hotel stationery. This was calculated, arranged, protected. He had done this knowing what it would do to her. But why? She picked up the photograph. Scarlet's lipstick was smudged, her head resting against Charles's chest like she belonged there. He was smiling, in that half-lidded way he reserved for after dinner and 2 glasses of scotch. Evelyn knew that look. She had seen it in her bed, in the mirror, in the echo of things they used to be. Now it was in a stranger's hands. The next morning, Evelyn called Leonard Grange, Charles's oldest friend and personal lawyer. He met her at the estate, his briefcase always too full and his eyes too tired. She mailed this to me, Evelyn said, sliding the will across the desk. Is it real? Leonard scanned it quickly. His silence was answer enough. She had leverage, didn't she? Evelyn pressed. Leonard hesitated, then nodded. Toward the end, Charles was scared. Paranoid. Said someone would ruin him if the truth came out. He didn't tell me what it was, but I assumed it was an affair. Affairs don't come with notarized documents and property rights, Evelyn said flatly. Leonard leaned forward. He made me draft it under pressure. Said it was temporary. A gesture. To keep someone quiet. I told him he was mad. But he insisted. He even asked about offshore transfers. Evelyn's blood ran cold. Was he planning to leave me? No, Leonard said too quickly. I don't think so. He was trying to contain something. Something bigger. She stared out the window, at the estate Charles had built like a monument to his ego. What happens now? Leonard sighed. If this stands, she gets everything it names. Half the estate. The villa. The artwork. The collection. Evelyn turned to face him. Then it doesn't stand. Evelyn. No. I've buried him. I've mourned him. But I will not let some venom-lipped vulture carve up my life because he was too weak to keep his pants zipped. Her voice dropped. She manipulated him. Controlled him. And if he was afraid, then I want to know why. Leonard looked at her, something uneasy flickering in his expression. Then you'll need to go deeper. How deep? He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small velvet pouch. From it, he produced a brass key. This, he said, opens the safe in the villa. The one you never knew about. That night, Evelyn stood alone in the hallway of the beach villa. The one she hadn't set foot in since their anniversary 2 years ago. The ocean roared outside like it wanted to warn her. The lights flickered, dust hanging in the air like ash. She found the safe behind a painting, not one of her choosing. It was a grotesque piece of modern art. Scarlett's taste. She inserted the key, turned it with a click. Inside was no money. No jewelry. Just tapes. 8 cassette tapes labeled by hand. And a single envelope marked. If anything happens to me, burn this before she finds it. Signed, Charles. Evelyn slid the first tape into the old cassette player. It clicked like a trigger. Then silence. Then Charles's voice, low, dry, scared. Evelyn, if you're hearing this, it means Scarlett won. Or she's close. I don't know how long I have, but you need to understand, she was never who I thought. And I was never who I let you believe. Evelyn sat straighter. She called herself Scarlett when we met. But her real name, or the one she used before me, was Seraphine. I should have known the name alone was a lie. But she knew how to look at me. How to say the things I wanted to believe. The voice paused, not for breath but fear. She didn't just want the affair. She wanted my name. My money. My legacy. When I tried to pull away, she reminded me of things I thought were buried. Things I did in the early days, before you. She knew. She had proof. The recording clicked off mid-sentence. Evelyn ejected the tape and stared at the small rectangle like it might grow teeth. That evening, she returned to the estate to find police lights flashing at the edge of the property. Smoke curled above the west garden like a ribbon, and the air stank of chemicals and ash. The orphanage annex, the one her foundation had built 5 years ago, was ablaze. By the time she crossed the lawn, it was reduced to blackened wood and molten glass. A firefighter pulled off his helmet. Deliberate. Accelerants everywhere. Deliberate. The word landed like a stone in her throat. And then she saw it. Tucked into the scorched front gate, pinched beneath a nail, a note sealed in red wax. Inside. You should have listened to the tape sooner. S. No threat. No signature flourish. Just control. Calculated, cruel, intimate. That night, Evelyn walked barefoot through her husband's study, untouched since the funeral. She stood before a photograph, Charles at the opening of the annex. He had one hand resting gently on her shoulder. And now that building was gone. Scarlett wasn't simply attacking her memories. She was erasing him. She picked up her phone and dialed her assistant. Find me the villa's blueprints, she said. Everything before the renovation. I want to know where every floorboard squeaks and every wall hides something. The assistant hesitated. What should I say it's for? Evelyn looked back at the firelight flickering beyond the window. Tell them, she said. It's for rebuilding. She didn't say what. Not yet. The second tape was shorter, but colder. Charles's voice had lost the tremble. It was flat now, clinical, like a man dissecting his own guilt. I hired someone to look into her. Not Scarlett, Seraphine. I had to pay him in cash. He said it was the kind of request that got people killed. Evelyn sat on the edge of the villa's bed, tape recorder humming beside her. A storm rumbled beyond the shutters, but she barely noticed. He found records. Nothing official, too clean, but there were whispers. A diplomat in Montreal, an oil executive in Dubai, a real estate tycoon in Prague. All of them met Seraphine under different names. All of them died broke, disgraced, or disappeared. She didn't seduce them. She dismantled them. A pause, then quieter. She studied me. Knew how to make me feel needed. She waited until I was vulnerable. After the malpractice suit. After my father died. She saw the crack and pried it open. Click. Evelyn pressed stop. She didn't need to hear more right now. What she needed was confirmation, something outside Charles's crumbling paranoia. She called Leonard. "Tell me everything you know about the name Seraphine Vale," she said. Leonard paused. "You found the tapes?" "I did." A heavy breath on the other end. "Then, I had my suspicions. There was a case about 10 years ago. A woman, Isabelle Devereux, married into French nobility. Her husband had a very public affair with a redhead. Name used, Clara Voss. Isabelle vanished within 6 months. No body. No motive. Nothing stuck. But whispers followed that woman all the way to Austria. And you think Scarlett is her?" Evelyn asked. "I think Scarlett isn't anyone. She slips into the cracks in a man's armor. Then she sets fire to what's left." Evelyn hung up. Back at the estate, she retrieved Charles's encrypted laptop from the safe he'd once claimed was just for bonds and personal files. She had tried to access it before, years ago. He said it contained patient records, and she never pressed. Now, she cracked it in 10 seconds. Password, Catherine. Her middle name. Typical Charles, sentimental, even while cheating. Inside were dozens of folders, but only one mattered. It was hidden inside a medical journal file, a digital nesting doll. Folder name, for Evelyn. If she makes it. Inside, a single video. Charles sat before the camera, thinner than she remembered, eyes sunken and desperate. "You have to kill the idea of her. That's the only way to win. She's not after money. She doesn't want justice. She wants to wear your skin like a silk robe." He looked away from the camera. Not dramatically, nervously. Like someone else might be in the room. "She said she envied you. That you had the life she deserved. That she was meant to be Mrs. Ward. And the moment I believed her, it was already too late." The screen went black. Evelyn closed the laptop and stared into the fire, where a small flame had begun licking the edge of the letter Scarlett left her. She let it burn. Then she picked up the phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in a decade. A voice answered, smooth, amused, dangerous. "I was wondering when you'd call." "I need someone watched," Evelyn said. And followed. "No mistakes." "Name? She goes by Scarlett Vale," she said. "But you'll know her when you see her. She smiles like she owns the world." A pause. Then, "You want her watched or removed?" Evelyn stared at her reflection in the window, her pale face lit by firelight, calm as still water. "Let's start with watched," she said. Then, after a pause, "But don't lose her. Because I'm not going to lose again." The morning was crisp, cloudless, and utterly deceptive. The kind of day that promised peace while something venomous coiled beneath it. Evelyn sat in the conservatory, sunlight slanting through the tall windows, but her mind was back in the dark, in the villa, in Charles's voice, in Scarlett's games. On the table before her were 2 glasses of tea, one untouched, one poured for a guest who hadn't arrived yet. She was waiting for confirmation, and her patience was beginning to thin. At exactly 11:15, her private investigator, a man named Dorian, who once tracked arms smugglers across Eastern Europe, arrived with a slim folder and a face carved in stone. "Your husband didn't die of natural causes," he said without sitting. Evelyn raised her eyes. "You're sure?" He opened the folder. "Toxicology from a private lab. You were right to send a hair sample from the pillow. His blood showed traces of digitalis, foxglove extract. Slows the heart. Mimics failure. Very old. Very clean." Evelyn leaned back. The air seemed to stretch thin. "He was poisoned. Over time," Dorian added. "Small doses. Weeks. Maybe months. Classic predator move. Makes the death look like fate." She already knew. But knowing and proving were not the same. "Do you have anything on her aliases?" she asked. He nodded. She was Clara Voss in Canada, Seraphine Devereux in France, and Juliette Ray in South Africa. Same MO. Targets married men with influence. Isolates them. Extracts everything. And disappears after either the wife vanishes or the man dies. Evelyn didn't flinch. "Is she watching me?" "Definitely," he said. "But I'm watching her harder." That afternoon, Evelyn returned to the gallery where Scarlett had first reappeared in her life. A pretentious little space downtown, full of black and white photography and guests who sipped wine like it was blood. She arrived unannounced. Scarlet stood in the center of the gallery in a crimson silk blouse, surrounded by men who orbited her like insects around a flame. When she saw Evelyn, her smile didn't falter. "Darling," Scarlet said, gliding over. "You look so resilient." "I thought it was time we had a proper chat," Evelyn replied smoothly. "Oh, Evelyn. If I didn't know any better, I'd think you were hunting me." "I don't hunt," Evelyn said. "I clean up what others leave behind." Scarlet laughed. Still sharp. "He used to say your words could wound better than a scalpel. But you see, that was always his weakness, mistaking elegance for power." She reached forward and plucked a strand of Evelyn's hair off her shoulder, holding it delicately between two fingers. "You didn't cry at his funeral," Scarlet whispered. "Not even a tear. That's when I knew you'd be a problem. And that's when I knew you killed him," Evelyn said. The room stilled. For a moment, the mask on Scarlet's face flickered. Just a twitch barely there. But it was real. "You can't prove that," she murmured too calmly. Evelyn leaned in. "I don't have to. I just have to make you nervous enough to slip." That night, Evelyn met Dorian in a rented flat outside the city. On the wall was a corkboard littered with photos, maps, timelines. Scarlet's life unraveled like string between pins. "She's meeting with someone new," he said. "A police officer. He's young. Wealthy family. Clean record. Classic prey." Evelyn stared at the photo, Scarlet's hand on the officer's arm, her smile sweet, her eyes calculating. "She's building a shield," she said, "positioning herself before she strikes again." "Maybe," Dorian replied. "Or maybe she's already decided who she'll be when she's done wearing your name." Evelyn said nothing. Then she pointed to the map. "There's a room in the villa she doesn't know I've opened yet. It's sealed in stone behind the cellar wall. That's where she's going to fall." Dorian raised a brow. "You're setting the trap now?" Evelyn smiled, slow and cold. "It's already set. I'm just letting her walk a little further in." The villa was too quiet. Evelyn stood at the top of the staircase, hand on the banister, listening. No birdsong. No creaking floorboards. Just the faint hum of the generator powering the older wing. It was the first time she had returned alone since uncovering the tapes. The first time she came not as a widow, but as bait. She stepped into the west corridor, where the walls still held the scent of sea salt and aged paper. At the far end was the old reading room, once Charles's private space, locked for years, now opened like a wound. But tonight wasn't about that room. It was about the one above it. A room not on the blueprints. A room Evelyn had discovered only after a whispered conversation with the villa's original caretaker. Sealed off in the 90s. Reinforced. Soundproofed. Charles never brought her there. Which meant Scarlet didn't know it existed. Not yet. 2 hours later, Evelyn stood in the candlelit kitchen, casually slicing lemons into thin, flawless wheels. Scarlet arrived without knocking. She never did. "Charming," she said, looking around. "Rustic, eerie, and a bit tragic. Just like you." "I didn't invite you," Evelyn replied without turning. "You lit candles. That's practically a love letter." Scarlet poured herself a glass of wine and leaned against the counter, relaxed, at ease. Evelyn studied her. The crimson silk dress. The eyes like polished glass. The faintest whiff of something floral, something poisonous. "You know," Scarlet said, sipping, "I thought about letting you be. But you're like a tick. Persistent. Buried under the skin." "I'm flattered," Evelyn said, handing her a plate. "Hungry." Scarlet narrowed her eyes, then took a single bite. "No poison," she teased. "Please," Evelyn said. "I'm saving that for dessert." They sat in silence for a while, an unnatural peace hovering in the dim light. Scarlet didn't eat more. She wasn't careless. She never had been. But Evelyn didn't need her to be careless. She just needed her to stay long enough. After dinner, Evelyn led her up the back stairs. "There's something I want to show you," she said. Scarlet followed, amused. "You're not going to confess, are you? That you loved him more than I did?" "No," Evelyn said. "I stopped loving him the moment he gave you power over me." The second floor was colder. Dustier. The electricity was weak here, another advantage. At the end of the hall, Evelyn opened a narrow door hidden behind a faded tapestry. Beyond it, a staircase. Stone. Winding. It spiraled up toward the attic, where no light reached. Scarlet hesitated. Just briefly. Then followed. The room upstairs was unlike anything else in the villa. Concrete walls, industrial lighting, an iron table bolted to the floor. It had once been a panic room, then forgotten after renovations. Evelyn had cleaned it, wired it, prepared it like a stage. "Why bring me here?" Scarlett asked, eyes scanning everything. "So few widows are this theatrical." Evelyn smiled softly. "Because this is where the lies end." She pressed a button on the wall. The door slammed shut behind them with a mechanical hiss. A lock clicked, and Scarlett, for the first time, blinked. "What the hell is this?" "Insurance," Evelyn said, calmly walking to the table. "You've burned what's mine. Poisoned the man I once trusted. You've stolen lives and rewritten yourself like a virus. But this is where your script ends." Scarlett didn't move. Her expression flickered, not fear. Calculating. "You think you can trap me here?" she asked, too calmly. "I already have," Evelyn said. "Everything's recorded. This room is soundproofed. Voice-activated surveillance. And this," she held up a small flash drive, "contains recordings, financials, aliases. All lined up, ready to be mailed the moment I don't check in." Scarlett took a slow step forward. Then another, until they stood face to face. "I should have killed you," she whispered. "The night he died." Evelyn didn't flinch. "But you didn't. Because deep down you needed me to know. That's your flaw. You want to be seen." Scarlett lunged, hand fast, sharp as a claw, but Evelyn sidestepped calmly. She didn't fight back. She didn't scream. She simply said, "Good. Now it's all on tape." The recording light blinked red from the corner of the ceiling, steady, silent, watching. Scarlett stood frozen at the center of the panic room, her pulse just barely visible at her throat. Her breath had slowed. She was calculating, Evelyn could tell. Thinking 5 moves ahead, like she always did. Looking for the crack. The weakness. Evelyn gave her none. "You've got a video," Scarlett said after a long pause. "Big deal. People vanish all the time. Hard drives crash. Threats like yours are cute, but they never end the way you think." "I'm not threatening," Evelyn said softly. "I'm documenting." Scarlett stepped forward, her voice lowering into something almost intimate. "You know what the real problem is, Evelyn? You and I were the same. You just hide behind manners and mourning. But you knew he was weak. You knew he needed someone who could devour him." Evelyn's eyes didn't blink. "I never devoured him. I buried him." Scarlett laughed, sharp and sudden. "You think this room makes you powerful? You've locked yourself in with me." Evelyn turned to the steel wall, pressed her thumb to a hidden scanner. A hiss followed, the door behind her unsealed with a metallic groan. Scarlett's smile faltered. "Oh, I'm not staying," Evelyn said. "You're leaving me here?" "No," Evelyn replied. "You'll leave in handcuffs. One way or another." She dropped the flash drive onto the table. 30 minutes from now, a very serious man from Interpol is going to arrive. And when he opens that door, he'll find your voice all over that surveillance file. Every threat, every confession, and a camera feed of your attempted assault. Scarlett's jaw clenched. "You think they'll believe you over me?" "No," Evelyn said, turning toward the door. "They'll believe the tapes, and the dead husbands, and the missing wives, and the bank transfers. I just needed you to say enough in one room." Scarlett looked toward the camera. Then she smiled, the real one. The cold, feral thing Evelyn had only seen once before, when Charles lay dying and Scarlett spoke at the memorial with a hand on her heart. "You know," Scarlett said, her voice low, "you've done something none of them ever did." "What's that?" "You made me bleed a little." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Good." 30 minutes later, Evelyn stood outside the villa, hands in her coat pockets, watching the unmarked vehicle roll to a stop in the gravel. A man in gray stepped out. No introductions. No time wasted. "She's upstairs," Evelyn said. "Recording's already transmitting." He nodded. "Interpol's been waiting to pin her down for years. But you already knew that, didn't you?" Evelyn met his gaze, unreadable. "I just wanted her to know I saw her. That she didn't win." He said nothing. Just gave her a nod before disappearing inside. Weeks passed. No headlines. No trials. Scarlet Vale never existed, after all. The world quietly swallowed her like it had all the others. But Evelyn received a package in the mail, no return address. Inside, a photograph. Scarlett, handcuffed, seated in a steel room, smiling. Not at the camera. At Evelyn. Months later, Evelyn stood before a new plaque at the rebuilt orphanage. Beneath it, in quiet gold letters, "In memory of those who burn, and those who survived the flame." Someone approached her, asked if she needed help with the dedication speech. "No," she said, glancing once at the sea. "I've already said what needed to be said."